Hi, gang. Hello, hello. Oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. You ready for this? Neither side knows what the fuck they're doing. Yeah, neither side knows what the fuck they're doing. Michael, horrors of horrors. But I am just quoting the President of the United States and not caught on a hot mic, but very deliberate. And I got to say, this throws a whole monkey wrench at today's poll question. The poll question today at Smerconish.com on this Tuesday is agree or disagree, Trump was right about Iran. Except the fact that he just said what he said on the South Lawn of the White House en route to NATO completely changes what was intended with the question that I drafted last night. Let me think about this for a sec. In the meantime, thank you, Parks Casino. It is so, speaking of effing, it is so hot. It is so hot. I'm going to talk about the heat and the impact, the financial impact on all of our lives today. But if you want to get out of the heat, because it's brutal, then go to Parks Casino, my casino of choice, located in the Philly burbs, so close to New Jersey, less than 2 hours from New York, less than an hour from Delaware. And the entertainment coming to the Excite Center, it's like whatever you're looking for. Gary Clark Jr., July 3rd. Saturday, September 6th, UB40. Later in September, Australian Pink Floyd celebrating the 50th anniversary of Wish You Were Here. In September as well, the Revivalists' Roots Rock with a Modern Twist. The tour is called All in the Family, 10 Years of Men Amongst Mountains. Classic Rockers Kansas, the Psychedelic Furs with Gary Newman. Everclear, the Sparkle and Fade 30th Anniversary Tour. Almost Queen, a tribute to, you guessed it, and Bill Murray and his Blood Brothers. Nice and cool inside at Parks Casino. Tickets are at parkscasino.com. You've got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, so yesterday, the Monday poll question, did the U.S. strike on Iran make it more or less likely that Iran will ultimately have nuclear weapons? 56.56% said ultimately made it more likely. If you weren't tuned in and didn't hear that conversation, the argument is that by bombing the three enrichment facilities, what we've really done is driven their desire underground, but we haven't extinguished it. And if they can pick up a rogue, nuke on the black market from the likes of North Korea, maybe even Russia, now they'll be more inclined to do so rather than participating in a framework that allows some kind of inspection. So then President Trump announces, actually, I was working out and watching. Why is that funny? Why is that funny?
You're doing 17 things at once.
I was multitasking for those of you at home. I was watching Brett Baer. I think he does a really nice job. That head of hair is awfully dark, by the way. Yes, I'm envious. But it was really interesting because he had Vice President J.D. Vance as his guest, and Brett Baer, as they go on air, gets a Truth Social post where President Trump announces a ceasefire. And it was really an interesting television dynamic because I don't know that J.D. Vance entirely knew that was coming. He suggested that he did and that he'd seen a draft of the statement before he had left the White House. And maybe that is the case. But anyway, it made for an interesting interview and it was newsworthy, and it's great, right? It's great that Israel, 12 days later, that Israel and Iran have announced a ceasefire. And I thought, well, there's tomorrow's poll question. Because if this military exercise was carried out with such precision, decimated Iran's nuclear capability, and caused not a single loss of life for an American, and maybe not even any casualties in Iran, which is pretty stunning when you think about the weaponry that we dropped, well, then the poll question on Tuesday has to be agree or disagree. Trump was right. He was right. He pulled this off. And I thought this is a great poll question. I went to bed based on that poll question. And as I speak to you, in studio pre-radio show, as I'm going over notes and I'm doing all my reading, and I look up at the Chiron, and the Chiron on CNN says, Trump, Israel and Iran don't know what the F they're doing. The F is, and it's up there right now, F asterisk and then K. Probably they have another asterisk in there as well. And I'm like, wait a minute, did they pick him up on a hot mic? Oh no, he's headed to NATO. So he comes out on the South Lawn getting ready to board Marine One. You'll see the footage. Believe me, you'll see the footage, and many will beep it. I'm not going to beep it. I already told you what he said, and we'll play it on radio today. In fact, I'll play it for Admiral Stavridis today. But he came out very deliberately, and why is he upset? He's upset because, and I thought this last night when I was watching Brett Baer, and they said that there was going to be the ceasefire and it was going to take place, I think when I was watching, they said in 12 hours. And I'm thinking to myself, well, why can't it take place like now? And there was some reporting where they said, well, there are already some efforts that are underway. And I'm thinking, well, why can't you just call them back? I didn't get that whole part. So it's still unclear what has transpired, but there was some tit for tat going back and forth between Israel and Iran, each pointing a finger at the other. What's new about that? And Trump is pissed because he feels like he negotiated this ceasefire. So he comes out on the South Lawn and he says, like, neither of them know what the F they're doing, and speaks to the level of contempt and hatred between them. It's really interesting to me. Let me just see if I can get this in front of me. The way in which this in very real time is being covered, because I noticed that the New York Times didn't print it. They said in the breaking news, they said expletive. Let me just see where it is. Trump lashes out at Israel and Iran as fragile truce is tested. President Trump lashed out at Israel and Iran on Tuesday over concerns that both sides had violated an hours-old ceasefire, intensifying the uncertainty over the fragile deal that he had helped broker to end the conflict. In expletive-laced remarks to reporters, Trump accused both sides of launching attacks, pledging to see if I can stop it. In a Truth Social post, the president warned Israel not to drop those bombs and demanded the country bring your pilots home now. It was unclear whether either side had breached the ceasefire. Israel's military accused Tehran of firing missiles after the deal went into effect on Tuesday and vowed to retaliate. Iran's military denied doing so, according to Iranian state news outlets. The agreement, if it holds, would end 12 days of unprecedented warfare. By comparison, if I go to Mediaite, let's just see where they are. President Donald Trump issued a blunt warning to Israel on Tuesday not to bomb Iran as he departed for NATO summit in The Hague, taking a critical position just 24 hours after brokering the fragile ceasefire. Speaking to reporters before takeoff, the president said that both Israel and Iran had breached the terms of truce and made clear he was not pleased with the promise by Israel to launch retaliatory strikes. Do not bomb Iran. If you bomb, it'll be a serious violation of the ceasefire. Bring pilots home now, he said in a message to Israel. CNN White House reporter Elena Treen, who said Trump appeared extremely frustrated and downright angry, noting the president then retorted that neither side knows what the F they are doing. And then in a Truth Social post moments thereafter, Israel, do not drop those bombs. If you do, it's a major violation. Bring your pilots home. So, yeah, so I guess the poll question is going to be subject to interpretation. What I really had intended with it was to ask if, in fact, there's now a ceasefire, and we'll see what happens. My hunch is, especially where Trump has lashed out at both, my hunch is that things will now simmer down. But he's right. When he speaks to the level of contempt and hatred and how inbred it is generation after generation after generation. And that's why, frankly, I don't think we could know the answer to the question of whether in the long term this works. I hope that it does. But, think of all those kids who are being raised now in Gaza, and again, I always have to say this, 10/7, horrific. Israel had every right to go and kill whomever was responsible for the events of 10/7. Okay? But I believe the retaliation has gone much too far. As a matter of fact, hang on. The New York Magazine just arrived today. I haven't read it, but it speaks to the latest situation in Gaza, and I'm looking forward to reading it. But my point is, this just goes on and on and on. It's like world without end. But as originally intended, if there's now a ceasefire, does it mean that Trump was right? Does it mean that Donald Trump was right about this? And there are a number of things that I've read, some predictable and some not, making the respective cases again before they don't know what the f they're doing. From the New York Post, not surprising. Disappointing hysterics across the political spectrum, from Trump deranged leftists to pseudo MAGA isolationists. President Donald Trump announced Monday evening that Iran and Israel have agreed in principle to a ceasefire. This follows Iran's nothing burger attack earlier in the day against a U.S. base in Qatar. That prompted the president to suggest Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region. I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. And, says the New York Post, totally vindicates Trump's decision to take out Iran's nuclear sites and so move this crisis toward a rapid end. So that's one perspective. Donald Trump was right on Iran. Let me give you a more tempered view. This comes from the Washington Post. Emily Harding, director of Intel National Security and Technology Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. She says that Trump's decision to bomb 3 of the nuclear sites was probably, italicized, probably the right call. This was a targeted effort. First, in the many years I've been tracking this issue, Iran has taken every opportunity to move inexorably toward a nuclear weapon. Second, Iran's leaders are in practice more cautious than their bellicose and bombastic rhetoric suggests. I think that's true. Their strike Monday in Qatar fits the pattern. They publicly demonstrate their retaliation, but with few to no casualties. I've said that about how previously, I guess it was October and then the previous April or May. In fact, I had this conversation with Ambassador Michael Oren when he was recently my guest on the program, former Israeli ambassador to the United States. It seems like it's theater, that it's performance art. Oftentimes when Iran, this is the third time I find myself saying this. They struck those bases in Qatar yesterday, having already provided notice that they were going to do so that they could tell their people that they had a robust response and that it was bomb for bomb, the same as what the United States dropped on Israel. But in truth, having tipped off the Qataris who notified the Americans, nobody got hurt, and that's a good thing. James Actton, writing for Politico. He is the Jessica Matthews Chair and co-director of the Nuclear Policy Program at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Talking about what's going on from his perspective, making the case that it's too soon to know what the long-term impact will be. The worst case is that Iran already has a secret operational enrichment facility, a nearly mature design for a nuclear weapon, and can manufacture one in a few months. The best case, which is far from the most likely, is that further military action destroys Iran's stockpiles of highly enriched uranium and centrifuge components. Even this outcome is hardly good because Iran retains knowledge and expertise. It could likely rebuild its entire nuclear program in a couple of years. And on and on and on go the arguments, making the point that you just don't know. You just don't know. Nevertheless, I'm making you weigh in on the poll question of the day today at Smerconish.com. Trump was right about Iran. Trump was right about Iran. Agree or disagree? Again, notwithstanding what has happened in the last few hours, because my assumption remains that there will be a ceasefire now between Israel and Iran. notwithstanding what just happened, which prompted him to say neither side knows what the F they're doing, truer words probably never spoken. If this is the way it ends, does it mean he was right? Now all of a sudden I'm going back and I'm thinking, okay, what have I said about this whole issue? My position has been that if Iran truly was on the brink of having a nuclear weapon, I still don't know if that's the case, given all the muddled information about intelligence. And if diplomacy were at an end, then I'm okay with it. It's funny because there was one of the social media reactions that I responded to on CNN Saturday was from someone who said, "You are such a warmonger." And I thought, I'm a warmonger? I said, if they're about to have the bomb, and if there's no talking them out of it, then let it happen. And then for the next 7 minutes of a 9-minute commentary, I said, however, based on what's in the public domain, I don't think you can say that. And now, obviously, there's more that Trump knows and the Israelis know than we will ever know. So it's kind of a hard question, if not impossible question to answer. Well, won't this be an interesting news day? Yeah, it already is. And 100-degree temperatures in our part of the country. Please go vote at Smerconish.com on today's poll question. Agree or disagree? Trump was right about Iran. Trump was right about Iran. Like and subscribe and set yourself up for notifications. And thank you. Stay cool. Stay cool.